What up, what up, what up? And welcome back to the beatmajors.net. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you guys have been watching the other videos and learning. We're back with another one today. We're basically going to speak on or learn specifically about EQ. What is an EQ? How to use an EQ? What an EQ can do for your mix. I don't know if anyone knows or really truly understands what our focus is here with our channel. But our focus and our aim is to really just help producers, not necessarily make beats or teach you guys how to actually make beats, but to teach you guys how to make your beats sound better, because the better your beats sound, the easier it is to sell, or the easier it is to submit your music to different labels, A&Rs, managers, artists, for music licensing, things like that. If your music doesn't sound well, then how do you expect people to listen? Today, I have a beat open here. And this beat specifically, it's kind of on some Rick Ross stuff, more hip hop, cinematic, I guess you could say. We have everything already mapped out to the mixer. So basically, I'm going to open up just a fresh EQ so you guys can kind of see what's going on here. All right, so I've opened up the Fab filter here, and this is basically what an EQ will look like when you open it up. It's blank. We haven't done anything to it. This is what it is. An EQ is basically a piece of software or a piece of hardware it's a filter basically that adjusts the loudness of specific frequencies that you're trying to attack, or you can turn them down or boost them up. So you see, these are all these numbers represent a certain frequency from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So understand that this is the low end, of course. If you don't already know, the 20 and below is always your low end. 20,000 and higher is always going to be your high end, of course. So just understand and always remember that. Your left hand side is always your low end. Right hand side is always your high end. So with an EQ, basically, I'm going to go to a specific EQ so that you can kind of see what we do and how we use it and how it can apply to your mixes. So we basically have a sound here. I'm going to play the sound. All right, so that's basically the sample that we used. As you see, there's a nice curve here. We kind of boosted up here in about the 1K range. Most of the time when you're dealing with mixing, when you're mixing your beats or you're mixing your songs or whatever you have, we have a nice rule of thumb that helps us. You can apply this to your mixing and your mixing technique, or your everyday mixing, and see if it works for you. We're just teaching you ways that can help you better your mix. There's no specific way that you should be mixing. Every engineer or every producer or whoever is mixing the record or mixing your beats, everyone's going to do things totally different. So nothing's going to sound the same. This is just a way so that you guys can, like I said, use it as a template and then start learning your own from there. So with this specific sound, if I take away all these effects with nothing on them, I'm going to take away all the other effects and just have just the EQ on. And then now, well, I'm going to turn the EQ off so you can kind of hear how the EQ changed the sound. So as you see, that it brought, when we first played it, there was no low end, obviously. Once we took the EQ off, there was low end in there. It got a little bit deeper. It got a little bit more thicker, and this mid-range area is lacking. So what we did was, that rule of thumb that I was talking about is basically on all your instruments that don't require any type of low end. A good rule of thumb that we always say is do a low cut or a high pass, or low cut. I'm sorry, low cut. And basically what that means is you're cutting your low end. All this low end, we're cutting this out, because what happens is if you leave this low end from this instrument, and you might have a bass or you might have a kick or something else that needs this room or this area of the mix, you know, you'll start hearing it after a while, like, man, my 808 is rumbling with the other sound, and I can't figure out what's going on. Well, this is what it is. The rule of thumb is low cut, take out at least the low end of all of the instruments if they don't require any bassy, you know, lower end to them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mess with the EQ and show you guys basically why we did this style of EQing, or why we only added these two frequency changes. This is the low end. Again, we had to cut that out. And in the slight mid-high range was just kind of lacking a little bit, so we wanted to kind of bring that out. So what we did was, like I said, I'm gonna turn this on, and I'm gonna basically reset this. So let's see, default setting. Here we go. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna start doing some cuts so that you can kind of hear and understand what I mean by this. Now you can tell as I was, you know, feeding through that, even when I toggled the EQ on and off, you could hear the difference as far as the low end. Now you can tell also when there's no more mid-high range. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in, double click that, and we're going to start adding some mid-range so you can kind of hear these frequencies and hear what's happening when you raise them up. So let's try it out. So that's basically what that is for there. That's, you know, like I said, we just kind of did that sweep just so that you can kind of hear the different frequencies. Of course, this is the mid range where we are here. Then you enter the mid high range. Then you enter the high range as far as, you know, your higher frequencies. This is kind of where you get this around between about 2K and 5K is kind of where you get the crispiness. Specifically for this, I think we were only in about the 1400 range. I think that's where we were at, because we didn't really need to go too far in because it was already sounding good. We just wanted to kind of give it an extra character by boosting that range so that range just stands out a little bit more. So that's that as far as those strings and pianos and all that being together. When it comes to things like a kick, you have an EQ on the kick. Now, with a kick, it's going to be different because, as you see, we cut all the area right here. We don't have any of this area right here, and we have a little bit of low end, but again, this is why we did the cut in the low end of the other instrument, because kicks usually sit in this range, in this area. So as you see, we're in between the 20 hertz up until in between the 500 to 1K hertz. So this is something that's good for when you're mixing kicks. You want to make sure that, you know, you're cutting out the low end because you don't want it clashing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to toggle these two, and I'm going to kind of show you what I mean by clashing. You kind of get the idea, as you can hear when both of them are playing together. You hear the low end of the sample and you hear the low end of the kick. When you go to master your beat, or you go to, you know, raising volumes and things like that, those frequencies also raise too. So those frequencies will start clashing within the mix once you start getting higher up in your volumes. So what you want to make sure of, like I said, is making sure that you're doing your cuts for your instruments first, or, you know, your kicks or whatever, you know, wherever you want to start. Your kick is a good, your kick, we usually cut around 39, between, some people say 40 hertz. It really just depends on the kick. It's not always going to be the same for every single kick or every single instrument. It's going to really depend on that specific sound. This one specifically, we, like I said, cut at 39 hertz, and we cut at 460 hertz also. So I'm gonna toggle. I'm gonna toggle this EQ on and off so that you guys can see. Now you can hear that with the kick, when the EQ is off, a little bit of the higher end started coming out. You know, it's mad punchy. So with that, basically there's instruments that require these higher levels or higher areas of frequencies. So this is why we cut at 462, because this specific kick was hitting in this area. So if I turn on the pre-EQ, you can see where the kick is hitting at before it's actually EQing. So this is, if you're using the FabFilter Pro Q, it has an analyzer, and you can look at, you know, your pre-EQ, so you can listen, so you can look at the visualizer basically before the EQ is touching it, and then you can post EQ and see what it's looking like after you've EQ'd it. So I'm gonna basically set it on pre-EQ with my EQ settings already here, so you can see where the kick was sitting at, or what was going on with the kick before the EQ. So now you see that when I had the pre-EQ on, it was still hitting in this area. But then when I turn the post EQ on, because we already did our cuts, the post EQ shows us what we do after. I mean, it's the visualizer is showing you what's going on as you're EQing it, as opposed to the pre EQ, as which is what's going on before you EQ it. So these are just a couple different ways for you to use an EQ. Hopefully this helps, you know, in your future mixes. In this video, I just wanted to show you what the EQ is, and, you know, how it can help you in your mixes. There is a such thing as using too much EQ. There's a such thing as overusing an EQ, and there's a such thing as, you know, not needing an EQ at all, because sometimes certain sounds will not need an EQ whatsoever. So don't think that every single sound needs an EQ. Even if, you know, it might not be loud enough. Okay, well, I don't need an EQ to make it louder. It may just need to be slightly compressed. Again, I hope you guys found some value in this video. Like I said, subscribe, hit the like button. Until next time, peace.